Today, Rev's going to teach us about Marathon and its disastrous sales figures. Let's get it.
Hey, what's up, guys? Rev here.
Hey,
So, over
what's
the
up,
past
Rev?
week or so, there's been
Teddy
a lot
here.
of comparisons made by games journalists and social media users between the games Marathon and Crimson Desert, despite the fact that they really have nothing to do with each other in terms of their genres. However, they were released in the same month, and a lot of people are pointing out the dichotomy between these games, mainly how Marathon was showered with praise from games journalists and activists on social media who are very, very fervent.
Was it? I haven't seen any of that, but I really don't pay attention to games journalists or what they have to say. So, um, I wouldn't know. I'm out of the loop on that one.
In their defense of this game's supposed financial success. And on the other hand, you have Crimson Desert that has been chastised by games journalists and has been turning things around and proving a lot of these journalists wrong. Now,
Really, I heard that I haven't played Crimson Desert or Marathon actually, but I heard that Crimson Desert isn't doing so well either. That it's not very fun. At least I think Asmongold didn't seem to be enjoying himself, but maybe I'm misremembering.
beginning with Marathon, a lot of people are looking at the Steam chart numbers and saying, wow, things do not look very good for this game given its budget that is expected to be in the hundreds of millions.
I think they
As
said
it turns out,
I think they said $250 million. I think I saw that figure going around. $250 million into Marathon. $250 million in an extraction shooter. An extraction shooter is by definition a hardcore game. It is a game that is going to attract a very niche audience. You're not going to get a bunch of casuals joining in an extraction shooter. It's not going to happen. What in the world were they thinking? How do they expect to earn back $250 million? I find it very difficult to believe that this game can ever become a financial success based on the amount of money that they've put into it. But what do I know? Rev, take it away.
according to Forbes, Steam is 70% of Marathon's population, and looking at the numbers on Steam charts, it is not looking good at all. And no matter how much games journalists want to pump life into this game, Marathon is not achieving the level of success it needs to actually make some sort of revenue for Bungie.
Yeah.
Compare that to Crimson Desert that just announced only days after release. It has surpassed 3 million
goodness.
copies sold, and that is
That's a lot
despite
of
a very
copies.
active crusade by games journalists to convince you
Quick check. I'm going to quickly check on the price. $70. $70 for Crimson Desert. Holy. 3 million copies at $70. That's still not enough to make to make $250 million back. But they didn't spend $250 million on Crimson Desert. But still. Okay, well, that's good money. Okay. Congrats to them, I suppose.
this game is dead on arrival and not worth your time. Now let's go back to Marathon, and this is where we're going to start. This is the extraction shooter that many people claim is the latest and greatest of its genre, and it's built a very defensive fan base who believes this game is not just enjoyable, but financially successful. Again,
I have a friend that really likes Marathon. He's really enjoying it. He loves the aesthetic. I personally don't get it. I don't like the aesthetic very much. It really kind of irks me to look at this game, but he seems to really like it. So I know for a fact there's at least one that actually truly enjoys this game. So there's got to be more.
the budget for this is expected somewhere in the hundreds of millions. So the number of copies they need to sell is very, very high for this to break even. Now, this got the red carpet treatment from games journalists. There was countless articles promoting this to this day. In fact, it got the classic meme where PC Gamer made their article saying, "The Marathon server slam consumed my weekend. 21 hours later, I've gone from meh to believer." And this follows a series of very disastrous headlines from PC Gamer, where they had the same sort of attitude towards games like High Guard, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League,
Ah,
Concord, Assassin's Creed Shadows,
I
and of
see.
course, Star Wars Outlaws, that were all massive flops. And
Yeah,
looking at the numbers for Marathon, we're about a month after its initial release, and it's sitting at 26,000 in game players, and it's dropped off pretty steadily over the course of time. Now,
Marathon will probably close its servers within a couple of months. Let's be real. They're going to try and get as much money out of it as they can to try and recoup their losses, but I don't think it's going to be a money maker for them. I don't think they're going to keep pouring resources into it. It'll probably be a few months, and then Marathon servers will be shut down.
of course, people will say, well, 26,000, that's a lot of people. Yes, it is,
It
but
is.
not the number of people they were expecting for a game like this, that again has a very high budget. They probably were expecting a lot more, especially only a few weeks since its release.
Probably
Now, people have been
expecting
very
more around
defensive about
100,000.
the Steam charts or Steam DB numbers involving Marathon. Literally on day one, people were already scolding people for pointing out the lackluster numbers for Marathon, basically saying Steam reviews are positive, so the actual numbers really don't matter. And also, they were proudly claiming that Marathon had a little fire emoji next to it, which literally means nothing because that was the first day of its release, and all that emoji means is that it's reached its peak concurrent player count in the last 24 hours. Well, guess what? It only released within the last 24
Yeah.
hours, so that is an automatic symbol when it releases.
By definition, anything would have that fire emoji next to it for the first 24 hours of release. That's silly.
But anyways, we also saw former Kotaku journalists like Alyssa Mercante not only say you
Oh
are
my.
stupid for
Okay.
paying attention to Steam charts, you're possibly a predator in real life as well for using them. Absolutely.
Wait, okay. MFers are paying too much attention to Steam charts when they're steaming in their own farts. Take a shower. Hey, you're not my wife. You can't tell me what to do. You're worried about player counts? Player, count how many women would cover their drink around you. I don't care if women cover their drink. By all means, protect your drinks. Women, cover your drinks. That seems like a good idea. The hell?
Insane copium. But yeah, it turns out the people who were paying attention to Steam charts were right once again. This keeps happening over and over again, and Marathon is another example of that. Forbes has come out and confirmed that Steam represents 70% of Marathon's population, with PS5 and Xbox making up the remaining 30%.
Okay, so those Steam charts are pretty substantial then.
By Reese Elliott, who shared this, stating, Marathon has sold 1.2 million copies across Steam, PS5, and Xbox. And that is a very brutal number, especially given the fact that there's an estimated generated gross revenue of $55 million. Keep in mind, again, the budget is expected to be somewhere in the hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
And Reese goes further, saying, looking at the split, we have the 70% here, about 800,000 copies sold through Steam, and the remaining roughly 350,000 is split between PS5 and Xbox. And this is
Makes
a set
sense.
of numbers that has been basically confirmed by Forbes journalist Paul Tassi, who came out and said, yeah, the player count reports that we just saw are close to the reality. This is someone with insiders at Bungie, and he is saying that number we just looked at is in fact close to the actual numbers at Bungie. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an absolute disaster. Okay, you can say Marathon is fun, you can say you're enjoying it, fine, that's your prerogative, and a lot of people are enjoying it. But financially speaking, this game looks like an absolute failure. And I think it's pretty much confirmed at this point. When you're talking about a game...
That's what I was saying about the fact that it's an extraction shooter. You're not going to get a super wide audience with an extraction shooter. The people that enjoy extraction shooters seem to be devoted hardcore fans that really enjoy them. But most people aren't that. Most people aren't going to be interested in losing progress constantly. I know I'm not. Quick video interruption. I've been putting out at least one video a day. If I brought you any enjoyment, I would appreciate if you would like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I do read all of them. Thanks. Back to the video. I played some Arc Raiders. I'm terrible at it. Terrible at extraction shooters. It's just not my thing. It's fine that other people like it, but like I said, they put too much money into this game. I don't know what their development cycle was like, what was going on behind the scenes, but $250 million approximately being put into it, it's going to be nearly impossible to make up that amount of money.
With a massive budget like this, 1.2 million copies sold is not going to cut it, especially when there's estimates that they need to sell somewhere around 6 to 7 million to break even. That is alarming. I mean, we're closing in on the first month of this game's release. Things are not going to speed up anytime soon. Even if we round up to 1.5 million, let's say it's off by that much, that's still a really bad number. And once again, the Steam charts were proven reliable. This keeps happening over and over again. Some game like...
Yeah, I've seen with a number of games, people will say, oh, you can't trust the Steam charts. That's just Steam. It's also on Xbox, or it's also on PlayStation, and it's also on the Epic Store or whatever. Like, okay, we get it that the Steam charts isn't everything, but looking at something like this game, the majority of the player base is on Steam. It does represent it. They're not having some sort of 4 times as large player base on PlayStation. You know, it's pretty reliable metric to use.
Marathon comes out, the numbers look underwhelming on Steam. People say, hey, that's not looking good for that game. And those people are told that they're crazy, that they're relying on inaccurate information, and that Steam is unreliable, or Steam charts. And, well, once again, the people who were looking at those numbers and saying this is alarming were correct.
I should have just shut my yapper.
For Marathon,
he said basically what I said.
It's so bad, even IGN is reporting that this hasn't exactly made a splash that Sony and Bungie wanted. Reminder, this is the same IGN that only days ago was lambasting Crimson Desert for its use of AI-generated art assets, while ironically themselves using an AI journalism tool called Sprout Social in order to call them out for using AI-generated art assets.
Is that real? There's no way that's real. There's no way that's real.
Gentlemen, but looking at Crimson Desert, despite a barrage of negative articles, this really was the focus of so much negative press coverage. Despite all of that, it's sitting at nearly 200,000 in-game players right now, just a few days after release. It has rebounded from a flurry of negativity that had a real impact. IGN came out with a 6. They gave this a 6 out of 10. Now, of course, keep in mind, as pointed out by Smash JT, IGN also gave Dustborn and Concord a 7 and Dragon Age the Veilguard a 9.
Oof, that is not a good track record right there. Do better, IGN.
So what does IGN really know? Not much, but people apparently relied on these sorts of ratings, and I'll explain why in just a second. But here's another example of how petty and ridiculous these reviews were from the supposed professional critics like those at Kotaku, saying after playing 12 hours of Crimson Desert, the only takeaway was pretty rocks. That's it. That's what they got out of 12 hours of playing this game. Rocks. And of course, Kotaku was one of the many journalists who happily, almost gleefully, share that after the very negative instant reviews after this release, the stock of Pearl Abyss, the developers of Crimson Desert, the stock plummeted by 30%. This was in the first day or so after its release, largely due to a lot of negative reviews, both by critics and by people who were very, well, let's just say quick to dismiss this game. And of course, you have people like this, day one on release, tagging content creators and trying to shame them, making the comparison between Marathon and Crimson Desert, basically saying you guys had concerns about the number of copies sold for Crimson or for Marathon. How do you explain what's going on with Crimson Desert? Well, these sorts of posts would age like milk, because now Crimson Desert, not even a week after its initial launch, has broken 3 million copies sold. And no, this is not a Ubisoft situation. We're not talking about player numbers. We're talking about copies sold. This
it's a lot of money in their war chest.
Start for this game. Like I said, we're not even a week past its launch, so this is really good. Things are turning around beautifully for this team, right? Like,
are they actually taking that money and investing it towards fixing some of the issues people had with the game? Again, I heard that it's pretty rough at times, so hopefully they're making some fixes.
Things were looking really grim. Despite some pretty solid numbers on Steam charts, the reviews were really hurting this game, but things have turned around once people moved past these games journalists and said, wait a minute, I'm going to try this out for myself and not accept their narrative. And just look at the reviews, for example, on Metacritic. The user score has now surpassed the Metascore, the critic score, and that was something that rose by nearly 1.5 points over the past couple of days, because people have had a lot more of an openness to try this game and to put a large number of hours into it to fully grasp how much they like this game or not, and it turns out a lot of people really do.
Well,
in
good
fact,
for them.
That sort of 50-50 split on the Steam ratings has completely flipped to nearly 80%. It is now at an 80% critical reception, and Pearl Abyss, the developer's stock, has shot up by 23%. It's basically stabilized.
I'm too cheap for these sorts of games. $70 to pick up Crimson Desert, my lord, that's too much for me. But good on them that they're succeeding. Good that people are making their voices heard if they enjoy the game.
After the first couple of days since the launch, right, it dropped by 30, it's back up 23%. Because people listened.
Dropping by 30 and then up 23% sounds to me like someone had an excellent opportunity to make some money right there. Have Whoo boy. Wish I had known and had money to throw into the stock market. It could have made some sweet cash.
To the reviewers, if this is not proof that the people who are investing in this stuff are idiots, I don't know what else to tell you, because these investors jumped ship in the day or two after this release when they saw the negative reviews from games journalists, and now they're crawling back.
They're only idiots if they sold at the minus 30. If they sold at the top and then bought back at the minus 30, that's pretty smart. Let's be honest, that's pretty good.
Once the actual players went out there, ignored the games journalists, and experienced for themselves and enjoyed it. And now this game is a flying success. And again, think about the 3 million copies sold. Isn't that a very interesting number? So that's in less than a week. Compare that to Marathon. Because all these screechers on social media, they're the ones who made the comparison between Marathon and Crimson Desert, despite the fact they have nothing to do with each other in terms of their genres. They just got released within a small window of each other. But they said that Marathon was a big success and Crimson Desert was something to be ashamed of if you supported it or thought it was going to succeed. Well, they have over 3 million copies sold, and it looks like Marathon has about 1.2 million, and that's a full month out of its release. Yeah, that's nearly triple what Marathon is doing. In fact, even if we round up to 1.5 million copies, let's say the estimate is a little bit off, a little bit short, that's still double. Crimson Desert has double. Yeah. That is a pretty big deal, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, all the people who are spiking the football, they're taking a victory lap here with Marathon, and they're trying to dunk on Crimson Desert. Well, they're definitely eating their words right now. And it's raised up some pretty interesting conversations about what games are working and what ones are not. And if you look at the games that are big successes, a lot of them were doubted by games journalists and activists on social media. And over here is an example of a bunch of games that were hyped up by those same people, and they have failed mightily. There is definitely a lot to take away from this situation, but I really wanted to compare Marathon and Crimson Desert because that's what people are doing, and it's not the victory they thought. And good on Crimson Desert and good on Pearl Abyss for turning these things around, because it was looking pretty grim. They were getting actually affected by these negative reviews. It was making people apprehensive, whether it's investing into their team or trying the game out in the first place. But eventually the truth prevailed. People enjoyed the product, and that narrative has been overwhelmingly spread, and it's overtaken what the games journalists were trying to do. And unfortunately for Marathon, those games journalists were not able to pump any life into this game, or at least enough to make it a financial success.
Yeah, don't trust games journalists. They're untrustworthy when it comes to actually reviewing games, and they are far too removed and out of touch with what normal game players actually want. So, yep. I think that's it.
But that's going to do it for today's video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and I'll see you next time. Hey, what's up, guys?
Thanks, Rev. Oh no, you've ended up in my den. You must think that this is the end, but you have no need to fret. There's still more to come yet. Click on subscribe to let YouTube know just how far this channel should go. More will come later, or if you so need, click on another video to see more of me in your feed.